What is going on, everybody? Hook here, back from a very long vacation, I guess. Apologies to you guys who have been following my channel. I probably have really loud music playing, by the way. I have had a lot going on this year. I changed careers, got into thing, but you know that had a really long training pipeline, and I'm still here. I'm still alive, and I still have lots of plans for future content on my channel. It's just here, but the Harrier has woke me up from my DCS hibernation, at least on YouTube, and I'm here to show you guys something hopefully pretty unique. So my virtual squadron, which I'm able to fly with on Monday nights, thankfully, and my work schedule still allows it. We're about to start a probably 10-week or more training course on, of course, RAZBAM's newly released AV8B Harrier. You guys probably knew it was going to be on my channel. I knew it was going to be the second I saw they were making it. But we are doing a multi-week course on the Harrier, and I'm one of the instructor pilots for our squadron, so of course that's required me to dig into the Harrier and prepare a lot of stuff. What I've made here I intend to share with the community at large. This is a Harrier field carrier landing practice mission. I'm no masterful mission designer, and I'm not the greatest, triggers and all that, but I did kind of make something here that I think is pretty cool, and I'm hoping some of you guys will enjoy. So the theater is Normandy. You're going to have Normandy to take advantage of this, and I recommend you leave your base here, which is supposed to represent Cherry Point Marine Corps Air Station in North Carolina.
Copy.
I'd recommend you leave the base with 50% fuel, which I'm defueling now, and we're going to speed up things just a little bit. So for those who aren't aware, real pilots in both fixed wing, well, I guess the Harrier is fixed wing, but in, say, F-18s that do traditional carrier traps, and in the Harrier, which is unique in its VTOL and STOL recoveries, both pilots in the Navy and the Marine Corps do something called field carrier landing practice. Now, our virtual squadron is lucky enough to have a real former Navy pilot among us, and he is able to give a lot of really cool insight into what happens in stuff like field carrier landing practice. But essentially, it's where the pilots practice carrier landings on a base, like an air base, a field, a runway, whatever. They practice landing on a carrier deck in a, sorry guy, chill man, in a field, like a fake setting almost. And the reason for that is because it allows them to, practice the procedures they're going to use without risking life and limb, splashing into the water, even though I'm sure it's still dangerous. So I've dug pretty deep into the Marine Corps landing signal officer Nate Ops, and it gives a lot of great information. And what I've tried to do here is basically copy, or at least come pretty close to a field carrier landing practice setup here at Normandy. And I've built in a tower and LSO that the player can use to simulate the realistic contacts. And the point of it is to train you to fly the right pattern, or at least as close as I've got it in my attempt here, and to know the call-outs that come out. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to fly to the Marshal Point, which is where the tower or the Marshal or whoever the proper authority would be would call us in to begin the pattern, essentially. So I've put in a TAC-IN. So we're going to turn on our TAC-IN. We're going to tune channel 12, and we're going to hit enter here. And I'm still learning the Harrier too, so bear with me, guys. We will enable TAC-IN navigation, change our band here. Make sure the TAC-IN's on. We should hear the identifier. Okay, and the TAC-IN 12 is marking our Marshal area. So we're going to go ahead and I'll put the nozzles at 60 degrees here for the rolling vertical takeoff, or short takeoff, I guess would be the better word for it. And we are airborne. We'll go gear up, and we'll start getting our nozzles cleaned up here. So the mission has an F10 menu, and I'll bring it up now. and you will be walked through the steps for the proper approach. So the first step here is commence from Marshall. So what you have to do to begin the recovery is go to the Marshall point. Now you can choose whatever altitude you hold at. The briefing on the mission gives some instructions for Marshall. You're supposed to hold at an east to west racetrack pattern, 5 miles in total length. So we're going to go ahead and head there and do that. And I'm only going to climb up to 3,000 feet for our hold pattern. So if you study the NADOPS, it really outlines pretty well the things you're supposed to do in a recovery for both the landing signal officers and the pilots. Everything is really controlled. You know, it's controlled chaos on a carrier deck, so there's a procedure you have to follow, and that requires you to fly a certain pattern and give certain call-outs. So we're going to get to the Marshall point here, which is, I think it's roughly over that town right there on the coast. If you guys can see it, just under that deck cord for my canopy. Once we're at the Marshall point, we'll get clearance to commence. After we commence, the mission actually marks with smoke the initial point, which is 3 miles just basically due east of the simulated carrier, and it's going to follow what's called the base recovery course. The base recovery course is the heading a pilot will fly when he's flying as to land on the carrier deck, basically on final. Yeah, so the base recovery course for this case is 270, so it's due west. So if you imagine the carrier was driving in a direction, the Tarawa, it would be driving 270 because the bearing of the deck is the same way. So when you get to the initial point, which we're going to head to now, you then report you're at the initial. So let's go ahead and give the call to the LSO, or the tower, who's going to sound strangely familiar.
Aircraft calling in Marshall, radar contact. Expect case 1 approach. Flight 270 to the initial. Altimeter setting 29er92. Weather clear, winds light and variable. Base recovery course 270. Proceed to and report 3 mile initial.
Okay, so it not only gave us all that, but it also gave us a script there for what we're supposed to say. So the required call out is our call sign will say we're 38. So we'll say 38, cleared to the initial, BRC's 270. I probably messed some of that up, but the point is it gives you a prompt that says REQ, which is required, then call. So that's basically telling you what you need to do next. Now, I'm probably going to really mess up this pattern, guys, so please forgive me if I do. But when you reach the initial point, you're supposed to be at 800 feet, and we should be flying the base recovery course, which is, in this case, 270. So we're kind of lining up. The smoke over there is our initial point. So the mission really kind of outlines everything you should do pretty clearly, at least I hope. So we're pretty much at the right altitude, maybe a little high. But we will go ahead and turn to 270. And as we do that, you're going to see the fake carrier and the airfield it's built up at kind of come into view. Excuse my Hangouts notification there. Okay, we're a little low, so I've spent more time building this than flying this, so I apologize for that. And we're at the initial, so we're going to go ahead and report initial point. So 38 tower initial point.
Copy initial point. Winds remain light and variable. You are cleared to proceed to brake.
Okay, and at the brake, we're going to give our call sign and report in the brake, and then at paddles, which is the 180 abeam of the carrier, we'll call a beam, gear down, give our fuel state, and report stops clear. Alright, so at the brake, we should be at 600 feet. If you look down there, you see our fake carrier made with cones. Those are measured out to the dimensions of the Tarawa ship, so it's kind of a rough approximation of what the ship looks like. And we're getting ready to report the brake. And the brake is not something you have a prompt for, by the way. Alright, 38 in the brake. So we'll go ahead and get our gear down.
Landing gear.
And we'll get our flaps down to automatic. Dirtying up the aircraft. Our brake point has been marked with white smoke. I think, forgive me because I'm having trouble remembering, but I think that we're supposed to be at around, oh man, is it 450 or 600 feet? One or the other. So now we're going to be flying the reciprocal bearing of our base recovery course, which is a 090. And we're at paddles contact, so we'll go ahead and report that now.
Paddles contact. Expect spot 4. Check water off.
Alright, so he told us to check water off, and he's telling us to expect spot 4 now. You'll notice there's cones that walk you through the appropriate turn to get to your final, which is where you'll basically call the ball. So we're going to roughly stay with those cones. Our stops are clear. We're going nozzles 60. Our gear is down, and we checked water off per the LSO's instructions because we don't want to waste water. So we'll descend down to about 350 feet, continuing to come back on the airspeed. And the next report we're going to give is hover stop. So let's see how that goes. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and put the hover stop. Okay guys, position. So I had to edit the footage there because I had a huge error where I reset the landing script. So we're going to go ahead and go
spot 4. I say again, spot 4.
And now that we've reported hover stop, we've been cleared for spot 4. The next call we're going to give is to report the ball. And I need to pay attention to what I'm doing. I'm trying to do 2 things at once, and the Harrier is not forgiving of that. Okay, so we're now going to go ahead and give the ball call, which would be 38 ball 500 and water on.
Roger, ball. Continue.
Okay, so water is on. We've been cleared to continue. There's no further pilot calls at this point. I'm going to try to focus on VTOL in just a bit, but I'll still talk. 3 things can happen from here on. We can get waved off. We can get cleared an early cross if the LSO feels that we're in a stable approach to the landing spot, or if we're not in a stable approach, we'll have to establish a hover spot directly parallel to the landing spot, and then we'll get cleared to cross essentially. So I'm not doing so hot, but I'm going to try to work my way into a nice hover spot. You should be at 50 feet AGO right here, and the reason is on a real ship you'll be at 120 feet above the sea, which is 50 feet above deck, which is the appropriate position. So we're now entering a pretty stable approach here. I'm going to give us an early cross clearance.
Stable approach. You're cleared cross early.
Okay. So the LSO cleared us across early. Once we get at about a 45-degree angle to the landing pad, which is right over there, we're going to gently drift that way, trying not to hit the beautiful Eagle Dynamics cone here. And we're going to start letting the bird come down, getting a visual reference on that spot. Alright, and a touchdown. Here we go, and the LSO will say
touchdown. Idle, idle, idle. Clear to taxi to the rearm area.
Alright, so we made it. I didn't think I'd do very good. I've spent more time building this than flying. So now that we're here at the field carrier landing practice site, we've actually got a rearm area just over here, which I'll show to you guys. So you can taxi on over here and grab some fuel. These red flags mark rearm spots, so you can have 2 or 3 aircraft working this at once. So we'll pull up here and we'll do a little refuel, and then I'll show you guys the last feature of the FCLP, which is the stall departure area. Alright, so while we're getting fuel from the ground crew, we'll take 50% again. I'm going to show you guys the features of the script here. So so now we see the remaining options are wave off, which we don't need anymore since we touched down. We can reset the field carrier landing practice, which will take us all the way back to the Marshall point You can do that at any time while using this little LSO thing. Or the third option, which happened after landing, was reset the field carrier landing practice to the paddles point, which is the 180. The reason I put that in there is if you want to fly out to the 180 point, go to the beam point, you can just restart the LSO calls from there. And the reason for that is in case you have a wave off or in case you relaunch and just want to go right back into the pattern. So we're going to reset the thing to paddles. And when you do that, you get an acknowledgement. FCLP has been reset to paddles. We just got refueled, so we're going to taxi to our stall area up here.
What are you doing?
Screw you. All right, and we'll steer through the grass very carefully, just so. And we are now at the STOL launch area, which is where you can practice STOL launches. It's in the same wind direction, and it basically will let you go right back into the pattern. So we're going to go to 60 degrees. We'll go power on, full. We'll put the flaps in the auto position, and we'll put the water off. Oh my God, we were light. We just went right up in the air. All right, so we'll go. We'll keep the gear down. We'll keep the aircraft dirty. And just for kicks and giggles, we'll go around the pattern one more time. And I'll show you guys how it works. So to get back into a proper position, we just need to go to the 180, which is right over here somewhere. Yep, I can see the cone right out there. I don't know if you guys can see that as well as I can, hopefully. And while we're flying to the 180, I'll talk a little bit more for you guys who have been subscribing to the channel while I've been away. I really appreciate that. It's good to have you guys aboard. I'll be putting out more content. One of my challenges has been, man, I am in love with VR. I fly VR all the time. In fact, using Track IR right now is really weird. It's really tough to find a way to capture that VR in a way my users can enjoy. So I am working on that. For you guys that follow the Grudge Match series and those PvP events, which is probably a lot of you, that's why you're even in my channel, and we're now at the a beam position, so we'll report that. We've got more events coming. I even have one planned for the Harrier, believe it or not, so details on that are going to come later. And we're going to go ahead and put our water off here. So yeah, stay tuned, guys. Harrier content's coming to soon. When I did a Mirage 2000 training in my virtual squadron, I made a lot of videos for that. So hopefully I'll repeat that pattern with the Harrier, and some of you guys can get something out of that. Even though I'm pretty, I'm far from an expert. I'm learning too. Maybe you guys can get some enjoyment or benefit. Okay, so one more time, we'll hit the pattern here, and we're coming around to our hover stop report. So we'll go ahead and put the aircraft in the hover stop, and we'll report that.
Copy hover
we
stop.
started to sink
Spot
there.
4. I say again, spot 4.
All right, so we got clear for spot 4, and the next thing we'll do is just call the ball. And we're going to go ahead and go water on for landing. All right, 3-8 ball, 500 water on.
Roger ball. Continue.
Okay, so Witch Hat should be on the horizon right now. We should be flying our angle of descent with throttle and our airspeed with the nose, which isn't so far off from normal approach work in regular fixed-wing aircraft, but the Harrier is far from normal in pretty much every other area. So one thing I found with the Harrier is you really got to be careful not to let chopper tendencies interfere with how the Harrier is flown. You know, you don't put that nose forward to pick up speed when you're in the approach. All right, and we're just a little fast. So we would not be cleared to cross early right now. Our closure speed is just too high. So let's see if we can fix that and get a cross. All right, that looks good.
Stable approach.
Oops.
You're cleared.
I pushed the wrong
early.
button, guys. This is probably a good thing to do when you have somebody else to be the LSO too. In fact, I put that tower there, so if somebody wants to F11 into the tower, especially in VR, it's a real treat to kind of watch the approach and do the LSO job. So, you know, if you do this in multiplayer, you can have somebody else work as your LSO, and I am absolutely butchering this attempt to land here. This would definitely have been a wave off, but let's just make it stick so I can wrap the video up. And we had a little bit of a rolling vertical landing there, no biggie. Cool. So there you go, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm going to make a link to this mission available on the YouTube video. More Harrier content coming, and of course a naval version of this mission with a proper ship is in the near future. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll talk to you next time.